That Mayuresh Joshi is on the phone line. Mayuresh, Shell was taking us through what was happening with the HDFC Q3 numbers. We've been decoding them. We've also looked at the one-time gain that has boosted the bottom line, as well as a closer look when it comes to the fine print of those earnings. Your first take on those numbers, as well as what you've really looked out for when it comes to these earnings.
Fatima, so a large element in terms of the one-time gain from profit on sale of the life asset sale is largely factored in. So the post-tax impact of almost 3,675 crores largely accounted for as one-off. But I've not been able to open the result extract. But what I was hearing from Shell in terms of the NI growth, and if it is a figure about 3,100 odd, I think that's a significant accretion that HDFC has managed to do on the core side. Again, a large element in terms of accelerating their provisioning requirements. And I was just speaking to Vikram a few minutes back. I think the provisioning that they already have on their balance sheet suffices the regulatory requirements. So with this additional provisioning, I think they're buffering on their balance sheet and strengthening it on even more. On the asset quality front, again, I think what probably comes out in terms of stability in terms of GNPA ratios, specifically in terms of developer book, is something which will be very, very critical. And the management commentary, again, with the kind of capital raising program that has got earmarked in the board meeting, what probably happens with a very strong capital adequacy in terms of the leverage that they can create on the balance sheet in growing their individual as well as developer book, I think is going to be critical. So I think good set of numbers in my opinion. The one-off again was estimated and that's why the inflated bottom.
So what are you expecting the stock to do now, Mayuresh? I asked you when we were walking through the preview numbers. Now I'm going to hold you against it.
No, so my stance remains the same, Vikram. I think it's a qualitative stock to own. And though I think pundits might argue that on a price to adjusted book, it's way out of median valuations compared to the sector as a whole at around 6 odd times FY19 earnings. I think the quality in the book probably still stays. So with the raising, and as I said, with the kind of leverage that they create, the government impetus on affordable housing, I think these are all factors that are going to hold the stock in good stead from an earnings point of view. And with all other categories in terms of key parameters, asset quality ratio, capital adequacy, tier 1 ratio, NI growth, the non-interest income growth, I think that should all hold good for HDFC over a longer period of time. So I think they are buffering their balance sheet strength with accelerated provisions, and that should also hold true and good, just in case I think we just taper off a little bit in terms of the developer loan book as well, considering HDFC's exposure to that business.
Mayuresh, just to take it from what you're saying, and this is, of course, a greedy investor question, because we've been talking about what kind of a stock this is, the kind of performance we're seeing from the company. But if I was really to push you in terms of any targets on the pricing, on the levels for the stock, what is the kind of range you think is reasonable to really look out for, especially given timelines as well?
No, so for a long-term investor, Fatima, I think HDFC as a stock, and in terms of getting into the stock from a price point, I think hardly does matter. With a large element of what it has exhibited over the past few quarters, and even in terms of tough times that the sector faced, I think this is one stock that has done really well. But the other element that I also want to point out is the cost of borrowing. With yields probably shooting up, the borrowing mix is going to be very, very critical, not just for HDFC, but for the NBFC space as a whole. So I think our positive stance on HDFC probably continues with a long-term time frame. But a large element in terms of pricing, I think we probably need to hear the management commentary. I think as I was speaking with you earlier as well, I think targets hardly matter for a stock like HDFC. I think this is one stock that should be held on into your portfolio and probably carried out over the next few years, to say the least.
Mayuresh, always such a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks very much for joining us, for your take. We spoke to you just before the numbers, and now we have the numbers in front of us. And Lalitabh Srivastava is also joining us from Sharekhan.